Intermittent fasting getting linked to a 91% increase of death due to heart disease was definitely not on my 2024 bingo card. But here we are. If you've been on the internet in the past week or so, then you've probably seen headline after headline that a new study has come out about intermittent fasting, and it seems to suggest that intermittent fasting can increase your risk of dying from heart disease. Pretty big claim, and it's gotten a lot of people talking, so I'm just here to add my 2 cents into the void. Now, there's actually just a few things I really wanted to clear up about this new research, because all these headlines may be getting ahead of themselves. Now, first of all, the study hasn't actually been published yet, so we can't physically look at the paper and see what all the fuss is about. It will be published soon, I'm guessing, but first it has to go through a peer review process, and this means that a group of experts in the field of research will go through the study and all the research, and they will make sure that the information in it is credible and correct, and that the research meets a certain standard before it can get published. So it hasn't gone through this process yet, which means we can't take anything as fact yet. And the second thing I want to point out is the information about this study that we have so far is based on a presentation that was done by the researchers at a research convention by the American Heart Association. And so far, all they have released is a poster that summarizes their research. I will link this poster in the description so that you can have a closer look. But this is a super condensed version of the research, and it goes into very little depth about what they did and what they found. So all I'm trying to say right now is let's wait for the full study before we make any decisions about intermittent fasting or this research in general. Now, intermittent fasting isn't something that I have dived into very deeply just yet, but it is something that I will be making a few videos on soon because it's a huge area of health and nutrition. But this research focused on time-restricted intermittent fasting, which is a way of eating that essentially limits the amount of time that you give yourself each day for eating. So there's a window of time every day, and it may be anywhere between 4 and 12 hours that you can eat. So for example, if you follow the 16-8 pattern, then you have an 8-hour window in the day where you can eat, and then the other 16 hours you will fast. So that 8-hour window could be 12 to 8 p.m., and that's when all your meals are consumed. And outside of this time frame, you don't eat anything. So from what I can see so far about the study that was done, they had over 20,000 adults that they looked at. They split them into different groups based on the eating windows they had. So I believe it was 8 hours or less, 8 to 10, 10 to 12 hours, 12 to 16 hours, and then 16 hours and above. And then they compared these groups to see how many died of cardiovascular death, cancer death, and all-cause death, which is just death by any cause. And so it seems that the results showed that the group that had an 8-hour or less time eating window, meaning that they eat all their meals of the day during the 8-hour period or less, had a 91% increased risk of dying due to a cardiovascular event, like a heart attack, for example. Now, we need more details on this study before we can take this finding seriously, which is why I wanted to wait for the published study to come out before saying too much. But the things that we need more detail on is firstly, the actual diet quality of these participants. The timing of eating is one thing, but if the participants were eating foods that increase the risk of heart disease, like ultra-processed foods, foods that are high in salt, saturated fats, and sugar, then it's more likely that the food itself caused the results rather than the fasting time. And we also need to remember that the information on diet seems to come from a 2-day dietary recall, which isn't the most accurate way to get diet information for research because it relies on information given from the participants. And 2 days, it's not a good amount of time to reflect someone's usual eating patterns. It could actually be that people happen to eat all their food in a smaller window on those 2 days by chance, and they may not be actually following intermittent fasting at all. There's really a lot of speculation at the moment. We don't know because we don't have those details. Now, the information regarding participants was taken from a larger study called the National Health and Nutrition Examination Study. And I tried finding what they did to get nutrition information, but I'm not having much luck. So I'll have to wait for the full study to come out and see what it says. Now, the other thing we really need more information on is the baseline characteristics of the groups. This is what the characteristics of the groups were at the start of the study. So their age, the medical conditions they had, weight, and so on. And the reason this is really important is because we need to see if the group with the shortest time restricted window, which is the group that seems to have the high risk of cardiovascular death, we need to see if this group of people had any differences to the other groups that may have caused this finding. So for example, did they have more risk factors for heart disease than the other groups? And of course, we need to remember this is an observational study, which means that the finding is only an association. It's saying the 8-hour or less time-restricted intermittent fasting is associated with an increase in cardiovascular death. It's not saying it's causing the death, and it can't say it's causing death because it's observational. So as you can see right now, it's a lot of questions with not so many answers and a whole lot of headlines. And we just need to wait for the research to get published. I'll go through it when it comes out and make a video on it and hopefully answer all these questions that we have. So subscribe if you don't want to miss that one. It's a bit of a different video today, but I did just want to get on and make this video while it was fresh. The usual weekly video will still be up on Friday, so I will see you then. And until then, keep playing the long game.